So yeah, Gavin Hignite, writer of Requiem for Vengeance, but this is what's cool. So Requiem for Vengeance, and actually I made a little thing that we can put here. Yeah.
Oh, cool. 17. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah.
I'm pumped. So a little bit of background. I just got into Gundam like maybe 6 years ago. I didn't know it existed. I kind of did through things I would get into. I've always been a fan of like mechs,
same.
Like piloting a robot. So that's kind of where that all started. But anyway, once I figured out about Gundam, it was funny where I got so into it because to me that took over what Star Wars was for me.
Yeah.
It was like a more mature Star Wars, if that makes sense.
No, totally.
Yeah. And so it started where I was like, okay, I'm going to make a pitch document for a Gundam live action movie. And in my mind, I'm thinking Gareth Edwards, something like that. And then they announced the movie, which we haven't heard too much yet, but that then got me to, I'm going to make this channel and spread the word.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
That's kind of how that happened.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the live action stuff. Who knows?
At least they're taking their time to do it right.
Yeah, well, and that is, I do know that they are not going to rush out and not do it right.
That's cool.
Yes, I do know that from a conversation I had. But yeah, there was a point where we were worried, are we going to come out before that comes out? Because I wanted to beat that out. I wanted us to hit first because I felt like our story is going to be better because we didn't have all the pressure from giant corporations telling us, you've got to introduce it to an American market and you've got to, like there's so much pressure on that feature film, right? That our project didn't have. So I was like, if we can just get out before that, people will, appreciate our story so much. So.
That and my thought too was that was almost like a strategic move because I feel like something like this is really good to get in front of American audience before a movie.
Yeah, totally. That is not untrue for sure. Yeah, this was created with some of that in mind.
So before I ask how you got involved with that, I just want to let people know like some of your background. Again, when they first announced this project, I was like, wow, that's interesting. Who's involved? I looked at the work you did. You've written for 2 different Ninja Turtle series.
Yeah.
I mean, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Transformers, Tekken. I mean, there's so many things like for me, growing up, all the cool action figures, cartoons, like all that stuff. It's like you get to like work on it. I
got to play.
Yeah. And like I mentioned before, you had directed John Carpenter music videos and also 2 short films. And you wrote both of those short films too?
Yes. Yeah.
So with the short films, is it where it's like something you feel like you want to get out there? And then as the director, then you have this visual sort of idea of how you want it. And then that's just.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, the shorts are always, cause I would love, if money wasn't an option, I would love to be writing and directing features. And it's just, it's a really big challenge to overcome. So I try to make a short at least every couple of years to keep working out those muscles. I write a ton, but getting people put together and shooting is a little harder. So I just try to do it every, as much as possible just to work out those muscles, basically.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of like with my channel, because like even though I write a lot too, but I never know like, okay, what's that next step to make something? And a lot of times it has to be driver motivation or whatever.
Totally.
But I think making YouTube videos has kind of been an avenue for me to like, okay, I have an idea. How do I tell that and then edit it? And it allows me to work that muscle.
And get it in front of an audience, right? And get some eyeballs on it, because it doesn't feel worth it unless it's seen, right? So it's a weird art form that way.
Yeah, part of it is like a sharing, like you're excited to get. It's like you come up with something you believe in a lot, and it has an emotion to it, and you're like, man, can I get that person to feel the way I do?
Yeah,
and that's how I feel about Gundam. Like when I realized how good it was. So how did you get into Gundam? Because I've seen like you were talking about like on your Instagram, like you had a new Gundam you got from Target like back in the day. So I guess
yeah. So I was exposed to anime really early on. Yeah, no, I just I was really lucky in that I was exposed at a very young age. My brother, who was 4 years older than me, was just like a total diehard kind of anime nerd, and you know, when he got into it, we had started on stuff like Star Blazers, and then Robotech, Macross,
Okay.
but we were getting stuff on VHS at that time, and he was getting it from guys that were getting a recording off Japanese TV or in Japan. The tapes would get sent over here. There was like no subtitles, there was no dubbing, and that's how I saw Char's Counterattack. That was the first Gundam I had ever seen.
I hear that a lot. Where that's what it was. So you're a little older than me. So I was born in '83. So like by the time I got to school and stuff, like there was Dragon Ball and all that, but even anime wasn't even really like looked at as a cool thing. So I pretty
not
much
like it is now, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I avoided anime most of my life, and it's only been recently I'm realizing there's some cool stuff, like especially from the '80s.
Yeah, and I, like everything, there's some of it that's not good because there's so much of it, right?
Yeah.
But the good stuff is just unbelievably good.
Yeah.
And I can't hear any squeaks, by the way.
Okay, good. No, you're right about it being good, because there's a lot of times, or unbelievably good, because I'll look at stuff from the '80s and be like, wow, I can see that's something James Cameron would have had in one of his movies, or like, wait a minute, so the anime did it first before,
Totally. Yeah, it influenced people so greatly. Yeah.
So
100%.
So I guess it was the help of your brother and like getting into anime VHSs that is Char's Counterattack.
Yeah, so that was my very first exposure to Gundam, and I didn't know what the hell was going on, but I just liked it. I loved the giant robot thing. I loved the conflict between Char and
Amuro.
Amuro, thank you. My brain is putty.
There's so many of those random names. I'm sure you had to go through that writing.
Oh my God, yeah. It's. I think I'm gonna probably giving myself Alzheimer's by cramming fictional worlds in my head all the time. But yeah. So and then we watched Gundam Wing when it hit on Toonami, of course. But the one that really stuck with me was 08th MS Team, and that was one that we had gotten on I believe home video. I think that's how we watched it, and I just, because it was a little more grounded, because it was a little more military based in its tone, that's the one that I really gravitated towards. It didn't seem as fantastic,
right?
So 08th MS Team is really where my Gundam fandom took hold.
That's cool, because that's like a big popular one. When you talk to anyone that's like into Gundam, especially like the viewers of my channel, like 8th MS Team is that one that like everyone likes because of that. It has that grounded nature, which is, it's rooted in what we like about Gundam in the first place.
Totally.
I think the new type thing I was able to gel with, because it's almost like an extension of the Force from Star Wars in a way.
Totally. Yeah. And by the time we get to like stuff like Unicorn, it's so out there and so big, and that it kind of loses me a little bit. And one of the things that I really liked about Requiem is kind of going back to basics, was part of the idea all along for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. So, because I think I read that too when they were talking about the influences for Requiem, 08th MS Team, obviously that Gundam EX design, with it. And what's really cool about it too is, because I didn't want to forget this part, is like the vibes I like from it are, it's almost like the Gundam EX is Jason from Friday.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I know. I love that.
Yeah.
When people see it, they'll realize that is kind of the idea, is that the Gundam is a force of nature, not unlike Jason, that it just or it's like Jaws, it just keeps coming back. Like no matter how clever or talented they are, it's just this thing they can't kill. And I think we were very consciously channeling Jaws, and there's a Steven Spielberg movie called Duel that was a made-for-TV movie.
Yeah.
That was very much in the DNA of this, in the inspiration of this, because it's just this truck that won't die, that just keeps coming back, and you never see the pilot, you never know what's going on.
Right.
I'm sorry, the driver.
Yeah.
And we discussed that in our early conversations.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because that's when I got into my whole filmmaking bug. That's when I went back and revisited.
When you watch in film school, totally. Yeah.
And then knowing that Spielberg even did early Columbo.
I love those.
Yeah, and how Columbo just became so big, and it's like, oh, it makes sense. They kind of have that DNA.
Totally. I love Columbo. That's
it's great.
One of my favorites. It's what got me through the pandemic, is we rewatched all the classic Columbo. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think it's on like Peacock or something like that. Yeah, my wife and I have been watching it.
We got it via Amazon, and every Sunday night I would watch a 2-hour special, and it would keep me sane. Yeah,
it's good stuff. I mean, because it has that slower pace, but it's making you think and taking in the sets or whatever is going on.
I love the art direction and where they shot everything, and he's just a treasure.
Yeah, he is. And then like seeing the other actors pop up that like we're now familiar with and all that.
Totally. Yeah. I love all the guest actors.
Yeah. So okay, so I was talking about all these different, so it's really cool. Like you've done all these things. Some of them veer more to like the family friendly side, but then like your shorts, have different tones, especially like John Carpenter-esque stuff. And then even Requiem for Vengeance has that different tone. So you seem to be able to balance like all these different tones, which is really neat. But I think the shared thing across that is like the IP usually.
Yeah. And I've always been like a sci-fi horror guy, that's just my thing.
Yeah.
But I loved superhero stuff growing up, and that was the kind of writing I could get when I started out, was kids action. And so the whole time I was working on that stuff, in the back of my brain, I was, secretly hoping I could maybe do something a little more sophisticated and, anime-like, because anime fans know that an animated, piece of media can be dramatic and dark and emotional. I feel like mainstream American audiences feel like it's a cartoon. And
exactly.
I always craved wanting to kind of level up to the more sophisticated. And I, thanks to some people at Netflix who believed in me, I got to with Tekken, and then Tekken opened the door for Gundam, and it's kind of here we are.
Great. Yeah. But I think that's cool, because you kind of alluded to this earlier with sometimes when you're working in those bigger areas where there's like more money on the line, sometimes it's almost like, okay, we have to make sure it fits into this.
Oh yeah.
And it seems like there's almost more, I guess, more creativity you can work with when it comes to these in a way, because when you're like, I almost feel like it's sometimes harder if you're writing for kids or family friendly, because it's almost like, okay, how can I send this message without like pandering, but also make it interesting?
Yeah. Like I don't write preschool for a reason. That's a whole skill set that I have not worked that muscle out, and I don't know if I care to. It's my friends who write preschool, I mean, they work really hard. 'Cause all those reasons you've mentioned.
Did you happen to see the new Transformers 1?
I didn't. I think I'm a little bitter about it, because I wasn't ready to not do I wanted to do more Transformers, and the TV stuff we were doing kind of just dried up, and then I didn't hear anything.
I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm being completely honest. So I just was dragging my feet on seeing it, and I've heard it's great.
Yeah, I've been actually surprised the story because it's almost speaking on maybe, if you will, like the current even political climate, where it's almost like you're learning things aren't what they seem. And that actually goes with the theme of Transformers. I guess I didn't realize that, but
that's true.
No, it's interesting. I've actually never been a Transformers guy, even though I watched the cartoon when I grew up. I think I preferred piloting a robot as opposed to a sentient robot or something. So I guess for me, I didn't know the lore. So going in, it was actually pretty interesting. But at the same time, I know that when I'm into an IP, I don't like it when then they decide to like scrub everything and then kind of start over or do something different.
Yeah.
You know?
No, totally. We had worked on War for Cybertron for Netflix, which was, produced by Polygon in Japan, and it was a prequel to G1.
Mhm.
And I was real proud of the work we did on it. And we had all but had a sequel series greenlit. It was like ready to go. I had written the Bible. I was working with FJ on it, and we were really excited about what was to come. And Hasbro was like, toys are ready, let's do it. And Netflix didn't want to do it.
Wow.
And so it's very crushing. And so ever since then, I've been kind of like, I'm always going to love Transformers. But, I actually wrote on Earthspark. They had me come in and write some.
Oh.
And that was the show that Nick had put out after War for Cybertron. And it just didn't touch me, and I didn't connect to it. I didn't care. I did my best and moved on. And I'm usually never like that. Usually, if I get to write something, I dig in.
Okay, well, that brings up a good point then to transition to Requiem for Vengeance. Like, you explained how you got involved, but what was, I guess, working with Bandai Sunrise like? How, because that's interesting, right? I don't know if this is correct, but are you like the first like English or Western or American to like contribute to the story of a Gundam?
From what I understand, I am. Yeah. I'm, a lot of Americans have translated and, worked on bringing content that was already made over. But I think I may be among the first or the first to like build one from the ground up, to like basically co-create, write, and put our little, our stamp on the universal century, basically on that continuity. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, from the ground up, is it where, I mean, are you working from someone in Japan and then there's like a translator and they're like, hey, let's throw around ideas?
It came together in a different way. Often, it's like the people with the IP. In this case, it was Sunrise / Bandai at that time, or Sunrise when we started, and then Bandai Namco Filmworks now. Right. But so normally, it'd be like they would have an idea for a show and they would take it out to the network and pitch it. And the network would be like, cool, let's do it. This was actually reversed. I had an executive at Netflix who I had met through my work on Tekken and my work on Transformers. Taiki, amazing human being, super creative. And Taiki and I knew we wanted to work together on something. And we'd put together a couple pitches that he had, for properties in Japan that were very, very specifically Japanese anime. It wasn't really like the world market, it was like a real deep dive, real deep cut. And they didn't fly, which is not uncommon. You pitch stuff all the time. And then he came back to me and he was like, he's like, what would you think about Gundam? And I was like, my head exploded. I was like, of course. I was like, Taiki, I was like, I never thought I would ever get to work on Gundam. I was like, do you think there is a path in which we could pitch something? And he was like, yeah, I kind of want to do something that is like World War II influenced, that's from the Zeon perspective, and we should champion a female protagonist. And I was like, I am on board 100% with all that. And so him and I sat down literally with a notebook, pen and paper, and kind of created what would be Requiem. And he took it to his contacts at Sunrise and said, we have an idea for a Netflix original Gundam series with an American writer. Would you be okay with that? We've never done that before. And they were like, they read the pitch and they had looked at other work I did and they said, yeah, let's do it. Which is, like I said, my brain still explodes thinking about it.
It's amazing.
Full disclosure, I don't speak Japanese. I'm really trying to learn as much as I can. I don't write Japanese. So that meant that they had to be very hands-on and very proactive with translation. And this was also during the pandemic.
Wow.
So I couldn't travel there. They couldn't travel here. And so they were kind enough to put translation in as part of our pipeline for work. And so I would write in English. It would get translated to Japanese. It would go to the team there. They would read it, give it notes. We'd do a phone call. We would go over the notes and build the show from there. It was and then about halfway through the writing process, they brought in Erasmus, who's the director. And then it got even crazier because he's in Germany.
Oh, wow.
We have a German director, a Japanese studio, Safe House, a Japanese, client, which is, who owns the IP, which is Sunrise Bandai, and then American writer. So during the pandemic, it was crazy. But for me, the world had kind of shut down and everyone was really depressed, myself included. The pandemic was very hard. But I had this gift that was every Sunday night at 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock p.m., our time, I'd get on the phone or the video call and we'd go through notes for, 4 or 5 hours. And then I would, go to bed and wake up. And then that week I would work on my scripts. So what a gift to be able to lose myself in the world of Universal Century and Gundam instead of like worrying about, are they going to come up with a, am I going to get a vaccine and how am I going to go to the grocery store and all those concerns?
You do it all remote. And
yeah.
So that's actually insane.
Yeah.
Think, like not only, and sorry, my light went out. What?
Oh, no worries. I was like, did I kick something?
That's actually insane to think because like already working with a property like that, I think, Bandai, Sunrise, they're going to have like stipulations, you would think.
Oh, 100%.
So the translation, and because I think in general with Gundam, I've noticed this, especially Universal Century, it's all very like consistent and like they treat it with care, like every step of the way. So
100%. Like the level of care and detail I saw in these meetings is unlike any show I've ever worked on. And I have worked on Transformers. I have worked, it's Star Wars is very comparable. I worked on a Star Wars series and that pushed me for that level of scrutiny, that level of, detail. But even that, our producers on the Sunrise Bandai side, who we're talking about people who I already knew their work and I already the notes they gave, and not every show I've ever worked on in my career has been like this. The notes they gave always plussed it, always made it better, always like tightened it. So I was very, very happy to be collaborating with that group. Cause you just know as a writer, you can kind of start to tell when someone knows their business and they're giving you good notes, or if they just want to put their stamp on it and they don't know what they're doing. You can tell. And like I said, I've worked with both in my career, but these guys are sharp. They know their world, they know the universe, and they know good storytelling. And at the same time, they gave me a lot of freedom. They gave me a lot of, just space to, because they wanted it to feel fresh. They wanted a different perspective on the 1 year war. They wanted a different perspective. They wanted to kind of change things up, not only from the Xeon side, but what would an American writer do with this? What's that style? So empowered. That's I think a word I was fishing for. They really empowered me to do my best, and then they made it better.
It's interesting. Yeah, just thinking, again, I'm really into filmmaking, so I'm always listening or watching behind the scenes stuff, and you always hear about the studio note thing. A lot of times it's more like, let's do this, let's do that. But it's very interesting to hear like it plus one, you had the room, but they also knew the world. So it's almost like they're able to communicate in a sense that makes sense because it's of the world. Yeah. It's not like in terms of just that specific creation. And with that, and I don't, so when it came to like the designs of the mobile suits, was that strictly Japan, or did you guys come up with ideas for them to use?
Well, I think tonally we threw some ideas out. Like for instance, everyone's seen the trailer, I hope. This shot where the Gundam, the woods are on fire and the Gundam emerges. That was very conscious, the way we orchestrated it.
Okay.
That is a horror moment.
It's like a vision you have. It's like, how we need to make sure this is in, and how do we build around that?
Yeah, totally. And, at script level, I probably went as far as saying, the Gundam emerges from the dark, and its eyes look almost evil, with their illumination. But then, like, the producers had the power and the say so to go, you know what? This Gundam has red eyes. Let's do red eyes on this Gundam. Let's really, and then, and I need to, our technical designer, who's just a wonderful human, who had come from like, shows like Cowboy Bebop and
in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had this idea from the scripts. He was like, this thing is kind of a phantom. This thing is kind of a ghost. This thing is kind of a vengeful spirit. So he wanted to kind of explore the vibe of it to be skeletal, to feel, kind of what you see, which is almost like a specter in the night kind of thing. And so, yeah, tonally, did we have some ideas at the script level? Of course. But did, the Sunrise team and their designer just completely, bring it to life? Yes.
That's really cool, because that's another thing that through translation you hope that makes sense. And sometimes that stuff can, especially if you are really into these pulp IPs, these, like, sometimes that excitement translates when you're talking to people.
Totally. Yeah.
And I guess what was some other the other thing I was going to bring up too, it's pretty interesting that this is, as you were describing it, and the tone I see from the trailer, and this coming out October 17th, I don't know if that was planned for the month of October.
Halloween. I think we always saw it as like an October, November release, but I don't know if I'd ever really thought that hard that it's like great spooky content for October, but it totally is.
It kind of works because Gundam has that darker side anyway, and I think this one does a good job of leaning into it, especially for an American audience.
Yeah, and when we were constructing it, we were really influenced by World War II content. So Taiki and I, from the Netflix side, kept bringing up movies like Fury, the tank movie with Brad Pitt.
Yep.
I watched a lot of, like Saving Private Ryan. I was even watching some of the classic, more like 70s, 60s World War II films.
And you just kind of, sorry, but like the camera angles, for instance, the way the cameras are set up when it comes to either flight or even on the ground, it's not like more of a modern CGI fest where everything's moving around. It does a really good job of like a camera might be on like the side of something, giving it time to feel like you're part of that.
Yeah, and that's a real compliment to the studio and the director, because with CG and with Unreal, you could get pretty unhinged, and it could feel like a video game really quickly.
Yeah,
and they did a great job of grounding it, right? Grounding those camera shots, kind of giving us
grounding them.
Yeah, that
horror feel.
I should also say too that Mr. Ogata is one of our producers, and I knew his name immediately from Thunderbolt, because I thought Thunderbolt was a really cool take on Gundam.
Yep.
And so I was so excited that he was going to be shepherding along with Mr. Ken Iyadomi, our show, that we were going to be, they were going to take care of us. They were going to watch over and make sure we did the right job. And Mr. Ogata had turned us on to a really cool movie I had never seen. There was also a real influence on us called, I think it's called White Tiger. It's a Russian film. It's a Russian tank movie. And it's free on YouTube. You can go watch it right now, subtitled. It's a great World War II, kind of a spooky. So that was a point of influence too. So I'd say that Duel by Steven Spielberg. Those things are all. But also 08th MS Team. If we're talking about what we're pulling from in the Gundam universe, we take place basically adjacent to it.
Right. Yeah.
And don't be surprised if there's a cameo.
Ooh, I love that.
We'll say that. Don't be surprised if someone shows up. So.
Oh, wow. Oh, man. Yeah, you know what? And that's funny because that's something, because Gundam doesn't do that a lot, or when it does, like in Unicorn, it's very like tasteful and it makes sense for the story. So in my mind, I wasn't expecting it, but it's cool to know if it could happen, but usually it's done very tastefully when that's the case.
And we were very conscious of it, and everyone is gonna, I think, laugh their ass off when this happens, because it's just not what you're expecting, and it's the perfect timing, even though you would have never thought of that timing. And it does make sense, right? Like as a writer, you don't want to do it just cause you want it to make sense. And I think it does in a really, really fun way. So,
Did you see the new Alien Romulus?
I have not seen it. Work has been crazy.
Yeah. I love the Alien franchise. It depends.
Same.
But there's something that happens in this movie that didn't need to happen. They did it just to say, hey, remember this? And that takes you out.
Yeah.
Like, because at that moment I was like, oh, and but
right. If it's not handled gracefully, right?
Yeah. And directed by Fede Alvarez, I was excited about because, he did Evil Dead, and I'm a huge, especially the original, like Evil Dead. I would say like Evil Dead 2 and Sam Raimi in general kind of inspired my getting into the filmmaking.
Yeah.
Just because Evil Dead 2 is kind of like almost like how you're explaining putting together Gundam. It's like doing these things that aren't necessarily always done, or like, horror movies existed, action movies the 80s action, but in Evil Dead 2 was almost like a mix of that, having that character but having the horror, and we didn't get that a lot.
Well, and the other thing he threw in that you didn't get was comedy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Very few people were bold enough to say, oh, it can be scary and funny, Yeah,
and that is also why I'm really big into Jackie Chan also, because he was able to take the kung fu stunt work, which is amazing, but add comedy to where you wouldn't think. It's part of the physicality too. I constantly marvel at his talent. It's just amazing. We watched a couple years ago. Being in LA, I get spoiled with all these film screenings. And Beyond Fest had done a screening of a Jackie Chan movie called The Rose that I just never heard of. It's like an '80s one, and it's like him, and he kind of gets tangled up with these gangsters, and the stunts in it are mind-blowing. The Rose,
maybe even had two names, because I had never.
I've seen something come up. Miracles, 1989.
That takes place about the right
early 1900s China.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
that is cool to see in the theater.
It was really cool.
I never thought I'd get that chance.
I don't want to keep bragging, but they had a Q&A live with Jackie Chan and RZA from Wu-Tang, and RZA interviewed him. It was like the best. Yeah.
Did you ever see Jim Jarmusch's Ghost Dog?
That's one of my favorite movies, without a doubt. I know.
I love that. Yeah, because RZA's in that.
Oh, yeah. I'm a huge Jarmusch fan. Huge.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
It's crazy. I think Ghost Dog is approaching a 25th anniversary. I can't.
It's been that long.
I can't believe it's been that long.
I became a film snob like at the end of high school.
Yeah.
I was like purposely just going at who's the most indie director, and I would go watch them all. And that was one of those.
That was Jarmusch. Yeah.
That's really cool. It is actually really cool. And that's why I was so excited to interview you, because I could tell like you embody a lot of the things that people that are so into this stuff, Gundam, Batman, Star Wars, I don't know. It's like there's this storytelling that happens, but it's in service of the characters that we all love because of their characters. And I think Gundam itself is a character.
Oh, totally.
And then you have all these characters and mobile suits that are in that world. And so, it's really good to hear like the inspirations behind it.
And I appreciate it. And I will say, that, usually the Zeon are a mustache kind of twirling baddie, or they're cannon fodder. Mm-hmm. And us getting a chance to get in the cockpit with a squad and try to make sense of their place in the war was like, very satisfying. And we were really lucky that Bandai was, the Sunrise team were enthusiastic about us exploring that, and it like empowered us to explore it. One of the things I think that stands out about Gundam as the legacy evolves is, like we've talked about, it is more sophisticated than just they're the good guys and we're the bad guys, right?
Yeah.
We're the Jedi and we're pure and they're Sith and they're evil. I mean, even in modern times, Star Wars is starting to get more gray and explore those interesting, areas. But Gundam's done it for decades now, and
even from the Xeon point of view, like MS Igloo,
right?
Though it was never in English, it wasn't dubbed in English, and so a lot of people didn't get to see it. And then even the most recent that Code Fairy, that PS4 game. But it didn't sell well. Not many people even played it. So I don't think people have really got an opportunity to see, really from the Xeon's perspective to get that idea. Because what if someone's like, wow, we dropped a colony?
Yeah.
Like,
I know. Because I've seen, I go online, I look at chatter, I see what people are saying and people are like, oh, great. It's, you're humanizing the space Nazis. It's like, well, it's not that simple with these guys. It's a really complex thing. And what, not unlike 8th MS team, what this show kind of explores is the bad guy is war itself. And our people on the ground are the sad sacks that have to go fight the war for the, bureaucrats and the rich people who are staying out of it, but playing us all like chess pieces. And that's kind of, I think you'll see that tonally through Requiem, is that, these are the everyday Joe and everyday Jane that, they don't want to be there. They don't want to be killing other people, but life has made it their duty. And so here they are.
Yeah, like even Degwin Zabi, in the original Mobile Suit Gundam, there's times where he's like asking his children, why are you guys doing this? We don't need to fight. We don't it's almost like you can see even at the high ranks, there's more of a logical approach to everything, because sure, people want independence, but it's how the individual characters go about it, and that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah, totally. And we're so hyper focused on that ground crew that you don't even see the big picture in our show. You're just with them in those cockpits as they're trying to survive this beast that, keeps coming back, but through what they've been through, like Captain Solari, who, I'm real proud of that character. I hope she translates well, to the screen. She's complicated, but she's dutiful and good at her job, and has a past, and has emotions and real problems like real people. So hopefully all that conveys to the audience. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, look, the trailers got me hyped, and I'm the type where I like to be critical about my movies and what I watch, and like, really, everything hits all the marks. Like I even feel like just from what we saw, if that's all it is, because there's that clip that they've shared. That's pretty. Yeah. Just knowing that that's what it's gonna be like. Oh man, I'm all in. Like.
Yeah, and I really tried. So that's from the first episode. Cool. Spoiler alert. That's basically the the teaser. But I really tried as a fan and as someone who is just couldn't believe he was playing in the Gundam sandbox. We really tried to give you a different kind of mobile suit flavor every episode.
Oh,
so
wow.
Because I just, I was like, if this is it, if this is, this is my shot to get to write something like Gundam, I was like, I'm not going to mess around. I'm going to make this on as many levels as possible, the best I can possibly make it. And Bandai just plus that. So, it could get boring if all they do is fight. If all you do is watch a 22-minute fight sequence in Unreal Engine, you're going to get bored. Yeah. So we really drilled into the emotion of the characters. We drilled into loss and heroism. But we tried to give a really cool mobile suit fight / set piece in every episode that's different from the previous.
That's awesome. That's good to know, because like when you watch like the longer series, halfway through they introduce, the new mobile suit, and sometimes there's the bad guy of the, of the episode. So it's kind of good to have that, not only just to keep it fresh, but also for those collectors or people that like to, get in on the new model, having new models.
Yeah, myself included. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That is awesome. Well,
there is literally, kit bashing in the show.
Yeah, we got an idea from one of the Zaku.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That's I won't say more, but there's a really fun kit bash. So yeah, and
seeing them with clippers and
exactly the giant pair of clippers. Yeah. But yeah, it's I always liked some of the more odd stuff, like the Zaku cannon, the Zaku tank.
Yeah.
So we made sure, within reason, to get some other kind of mobile suits in. And I think people have seen the Gauf, the Goof. I never say it right.
Yeah, I know it's Goof, Gauf. Yeah, Goof.
Even with the Sunrise team, I struggled with Jim for the longest time, like GM, because growing up here, you read the box and you call it what you think it is.
GM.
Yeah. And
I was always a GM.
I was a GM until I started working with Sunrise, and I was like, I got to say Jim.
Oh, so they always say Jim. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Now, I don't know if you can answer this or not. In the English, do you hear them say Jim in the show or GM?
I can't remember.
That's good enough. I like the surprise.
Yeah, there is an episode where that would definitely come up, and I can't remember. Because one thing to remember, or one thing that you'll quickly discover, is our Xeon have not seen these things before.
Oh, right, yeah.
This is about their first encounter with a Earth mobile suit.
Yeah.
So how to say Jim or GM is as much a mystery to our Xeon as it is to us.
That is actually a pretty cool way to think about it, too, because in universe, all these names in universe could be mispronounced as much as the viewers.
Totally, yeah. And, those who are lucky enough to survive the Gundam, they'll come up with a name for it afterwards, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. That's cool. And it's always like, you get like, that's where the White Devil, I guess, comes from.
Totally. From these nicknames, yeah.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, and I love, was it Red Comet? I think we do put a Red Comet reference in.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really neat. Yeah, because that, I didn't know it right away, but I was always a fan of like the World War I air combat and Red Baron.
Yeah, totally.
I at first didn't even put that together. And I love that stuff because it's part of that whole pilot.
Totally. I love that stuff too. Yeah. Like the art on the side of a B-17 bomber, right? And like so that's like very much where like Red Wolf Squadron came from is, cool. We wanted, and like if you look, the Zaku, that unit, the Red Wolves, they have like a cool logo on their shield.
Yeah.
And it's very much evoking that World War II kind of, branding that soldiers would put on themselves.
That's good. Yeah. So really, it's like I'm hearing all the things that have made Gundam what it is and successful, and being able to still lean into that, but modernizing it and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
super excited. Any other little things you can share about the show and behind the scenes?
I mean, gosh, it's
got a lot, by the way, more than I thought. So
yeah, and you know, I never want to like spoil stuff too much.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't.
But the behind the scenes of it is pretty fascinating. Being that, you know, here I am, a nerdy kid from Colorado, you know, grew up on, you know, Lupin and Miyazaki and, you know, Robotech and stuff. All these years later.
And then other things like that Pee Wee Herman back there. Is that the one with the drawstring?
It is, yeah.
I had that when I was younger.
Yeah.
That unlocks some memories right there.
Yeah, totally. Such a good. If right next to him is a Godzilla from. There he is. There's Godzilla. That's the Shogun Warriors version that came out from in America in like the late 70s. Yeah.
Well, yeah. You know, let's move on to that real quick because I don't know how much more time you have, but you have yet Wandering Planet. Yeah,
Wandering Planet Toys,
which is amazing, and I guess how you explain it to me is like toys of some things don't exist, so here's a way to do it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, in my career as a writer and you know, producer in animation, I worked more than once with a really awesome guy named Doc Wyatt. And Doc is an animation writer, producer. He's done shows like Spider-Man, and like we worked together on Ninja Turtles and Star Wars. And one thing Doc and I would always do if we weren't working is talk about toys, because we're both big toy collectors.
Oh, that's cool.
And we're kind of like what you were talking about. We're fans of the, you know, the anime, sci-fi, kind of, you know, like nerdy, whatever, quote unquote stuff. But we also love like classic TV and just stuff that wasn't getting the toy treatment. And there's a TV show that both him and I love called The Prisoner. That it's a kind of a sci-fi-ish spy show from England in the late 60s. And we were like, we want toys. And so we got the license and figured out how to manufacture toys and did a prototype and went up on Kickstarter and that kind of launched Wandering Planet Toys. And so now we have
the Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah, those are currently on Kickstarter. We've funded, which is amazing. We know we get to make them. And I think that it's funny because that campaign ends about 1 or 2 days before Gundam comes out.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh, good, because it's a lot of work managing the Kickstarter campaigns. Yeah. But yeah, so we just have this little boutique toy company, and we're making weird stuff whenever we can. We did Nancy Drew toys because no one had ever made Nancy Drew toys, and she's an awesome, strong, smart character that needed a figure. We did Prisoner Wave 2 because Prisoner is doing so well. It's got such a strong fandom. And yeah, we're going to keep going. And I mean, there will be a point where we want to explore some anime stuff because there's some anime that have never gotten action figures the way I feel I would want them.
Yeah.
And I hope that by doing the work I'm currently getting to do to keep meeting the people we would need to meet to say, hey, how can we get this license, you know?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's really cool. Like, so that's part of, you know, me wanting to do this interview with you, you know, for everyone that's watching, like, it's one of us, you know, like all into that stuff and understanding the context of the story of the property of, you know, action figure show, whatever.
Yeah, I have. It's, you know, honestly true. It's like I grew up eating and breathing and drinking all this stuff. And I wasn't good at anything else. I didn't care about anything else. So I just kept submitting scripts. I kept writing.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, I can't tell you the amount of stuff I've written that no one's ever read, no one ever will read because it wasn't great or I didn't get to finish it. But I was working on it was supposed to be like a futuristic vampire comic. And I showed it to a buddy that I was practicing Kung Fu with at the time. Oh. And it turned out he was the head writer on Ninja Turtles for the 2003 series.
Oh,
and
wow.
that sample I had made told him, this kid's put in the work. This kid can tell story via, and that's how I got my break. That was how I got in.
Wow.
And
It's amazing.
Who would think, right? It's because I was working out with the right guy for a couple years, and
Was this in California?
Yeah, this is LA.
Okay.
Sealum Pai. It's a kung fu organization that our Sifu passed 2 years ago now.
Oh,
unfortunately, but he's left an amazing legacy, and I have friendships and knowledge and just a special component of my life that will always go back to that kung fu school. And out of working on that art and trying to make my body and my brain better than they are, came work opportunity, came relationships with people who are doing cool stuff, and that's how I got my break. So
that's a good point.
Never know.
Yeah, working on yourself to sort of kind of get you to that place, because I've been kind of on that journey with my mind and dieting and all that, like just really being conscious of all those things. I think it's allowed me to just feel more confident about moves I make and all that. So
100%
to be said there. Yeah.
I mean, not to get deep and cheesy, but it's the strong mind, strong body thing is very true. And I deal with a lot of like a lot of us, I deal with like depression and stuff that drags me down. And I know that if I work out and I eat right and I stay away from booze and stuff, that I'm way more positive, and more positive things happen in my life. So I still do it.
Yeah, I know it's true. Do you ever do meditation?
Funny you should mention. Yeah, I started 2 years ago. Yeah, I started doing TM, the trans. I can never say it. Transcendental meditation.
Yeah, I was actually at 2 years ago. I was at a 7-day silent.
Wow,
that actually happened to be near me, so it was much easier to plan out.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think it's a good regular practice. Yeah,
same. I did it. I made sure to do it this morning. I try to do it daily. If I was really being good, I do it twice daily, which I need to get back to doing. But meditation has been really good for me. The TM, especially. And here in LA, and not just LA, but David Lynch has an organization that promotes TM meditation. Right. And that's how I learned is through his organization.
Yeah, because I see it as, well, look at the work he's done.
Totally.
And then he does this.
Right? I 100%. I felt the same way. I was like, because he always says, well, if you're fishing and you want to catch the big fish, you have to go very deep.
Ah, that's good.
And I'm like, that's always, ever since I heard him say that, it's been in my mind. And long emotional story short, my brother, who had turned me on to this world, who got me into anime, who he had passed 2 years ago. It was very hard. And that's when the meditation started, because I needed something. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I try not to get emotional, but
no, that's a good story.
He would be very proud of what's about to premiere. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, just picturing him just knowing that, like, someone like me is so excited to be able to talk to you, because seeing everything you've been involved with, everything you've done, and as you brought up, there's a lot about your brother showing you these things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah, his influence and our nerdy adventures are definitely part of baked into this cake too, for sure. And we have friends who we've grown up building Gunpla with, who, we would talk Star Trek, we would talk Star Wars, we would talk Macross, big Macross fans. And we're all collectively kind of like pinching ourselves as this premiere date approaches, because like you said, one of us, which is, us nerdy fans who just love the stuff, somehow got to make it. Yeah.
No, that is great. And I think it's great for the Gundam franchise to have right now, as we're moving potentially into this live action movie.
Totally.
And it sounds like it's like the perfect thing to have happen in a career, for like, that is.
Yeah. I don't know what's next. I don't know. What do you do after you get to write Gundam, right? Like if this is the stuff you love, and but I'm excited to find out, and I'm also not waiting. I'm pushing, like we had spoken. Trying to get stuff that I've written, like films, off the ground, and I've been writing a video game. Actually, has been my day job since Gundam ended.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so
big gamer over here. That's probably my second passion. I have another channel that just covers, because I've been following the industry forever. So every morning I just cover latest industry news and stuff like that.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah.
Well, I can't say much about the property or anything, but you'll appreciate it when it comes out.
Oh my gosh! Well. Well, hey, this has been awesome. Thank you so much.
It's been fun, man. It's not work. You know what I mean? It's not even when we get together and talk about stuff like this. I just have fun. So
yeah. Exactly. Well, yeah. Thanks for being here. And thanks for talking.
Yeah, thanks for helping us get the word out. There's a lot of content and a lot of channels and a lot of bandwidth. Yeah. So it's. Even something like Gundam, you have to really be like, guys, it's coming. You have to see it.
And another reason why I started this channel, when I got into Gundam, looked it up online, there was not many, English language, like forward presenting that was covering everything. It would be very niche or very like, I guess niche is really the word. Little niches of how you would do YouTube. I was like, I need to cover it in general and just like get the word out there.
Well, and to pay a compliment, one of the things I love about your approach is it's like positive and it's joyful.
Yeah.
Because, the internet's filled with a lot of not of that. So
and we were just talking about meditation, mindfulness. One of the keys there is not spending your time scrolling and looking at what's being said, because you create this alternate reality that doesn't make sense, and that could cause depression. So yeah, that's another factor.
We all have opinions. We all have what we love and don't like. But I'm making a choice to kind of pay attention to the people that love the stuff I like, and try to write for them.
Yeah. Always being in the positivity, like just manifesting it, keeping it there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, yeah. Hopefully we'll see how it plays, and maybe we get to talk about more. I don't know.
That would be great. Yeah, that will be great for sure.
But we have 6 episodes coming that will play like a movie for everybody. I guarantee it. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. And I am assuming if this does well and you get the opportunity to do more, you're going to do more.
I definitely have more in my head, and we know how we would follow it up.
Oh, that's cool. That's a good way to answer it. That's a good way to answer it.
Yeah. Because people will see it's a very tight, it's bookended. You could walk away from this and enjoy it as a what it is. Or you could, be curious, well, what happens next, to who survives and whatnot. There's ideas.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Super excited. Well, yeah. So Requiem for Vengeance, October 17th. I know I'm going to try to like do a reaction thing live or something. I don't know how that works. I'm going to try to do something to get more people to
appreciate it. Yeah.
That'd be great. So well, thanks a lot, Gavin.
I'll be acting along with it with the toys and the kits if they come out in time.
Oh, I have them all pre-ordered. I'm hoping I'll just watch it again and then do it.
Yeah, totally. Me too. Yeah.